Ladies and gentlemen, happy Monday. It is a good week. It is a good day. It's always good to be a United States of America volleyball fan, but it's the end of men's VNL week one, and it's a good time to be a United States men's volleyball fan. It's a good day. I feel good about today. We are going to talk about the USA's last two games. We already talked about the loss to Ukraine. We already talked about the win, the comeback win versus Iran. We're going to talk about the Slovenia game on Saturday and the Cuba game from Sunday, and kind of recap the whole week to set the stage for when the boys come to me, when they come to my home city of Chicago, play their first game a week from Wednesday. So great week to be a United States fan. Chronologically, okay, let's get the tougher one out of the way. Let's get the Slovenia loss out of the way. We lose 3-1 midday Saturday down in Rio de Janeiro, 25-22, 27-25. Slovenia took the first two. We took the third 25-20, lost the fourth 25-23. That's a bummer. That game was a bummer because I really thought that game was winnable. I think that Slovenia right now is a team that is at least one, maybe two or multiple levels ahead of where the United States is. But we caught them at a good beatable time. The Slovenia, I think, and this is something that Everett and I are going to talk about on the 9x9 tomorrow, but I think Slovenia might have been the biggest victim this week of the new VNL schedule. The 4 matches in 5 days thing is pretty brutal. Condensed from 4 matches in 6 days previous years, but like Slovenia in particular, on Friday, almost like midnight local time, they finished up beating Iran in a 5-setter. Then they had to turn around like just barely more than 12 hours later and take on the United States the next day. And that is just a brutal draw for them. And because of that draw, I really thought we had a chance to steal that game because kind of as expected, Slovenia rolled out a lineup on Saturday against us that was significantly different than what they dealt with Iran on Friday. People in the chat already talking about Nick Mujanovic. He is a player that we've had our eyes on since before the tournament as maybe the next great point scorer at the opposite position for Slovenia. He was insane against Iran on Friday night, dropped 30 points, but didn't start the game against us. And that's not surprising. Neither did their other young superstar, Rok Mozic. So the Slovenia that we got was a significantly older, more veteran, skilled, experienced version of Slovenia. They were still missing Klemen Chabel. They were missing Gregor Roper at the setter. They were missing Alan Payenk in the middle, but they had I think 4 out of 7 Olympic starters in the starting lineup against us, and that is a team that has been together and has been at the international level for a very long time. I was curious about how the United States was going to play in a matchup like that, and maybe not surprisingly, the moral of the story for me against Slovenia is that we were not good enough after point 20. We had a chance to win all 4 of those sets. Particularly sets 1 and 4. I think we had great chances to win. We had decent mid-set leads. We had the biggest lead mid-set in set number 2 that we lost in overtime that we can talk about in a minute. But that, to me, was a team that wasn't quite ready to make the plays, especially in first contact after point 20 when the sets were on the line. And that, I think, in the long term can be a good learning experience, even if that's a missed opportunity for the Slovenia game that was. Our starting lineup that game, we rolled out Nolan Flexen on the left side, Gabi Garcia on the right side, and then Jordan Ewert, who I think started the first 3 games on the left side, is the most experienced one of the wings. Flexen, I didn't think played that poorly on the eye test, but his numbers were not very good. 5 for 14 attacking with 3 errors, not good reception numbers. Didn't serve well, got 2 stuff blocks, but I thought it wasn't a bad choice to start Flexen. It wasn't. He didn't play poorly by any means. I think there's still a lot of great potential with that player. I mean, he's still his caliber of volleyball is expanding every day. I mean, he played in the NAIA like 3 years ago, so he's certainly a good prospect still. I think that he hit a lot of ball. He does a good job of keeping the ball high when he swings, which I think is the exact opposite of what I would say Gabi Garcia is doing on offense right now. Flexen keeps the ball really high, which is great. He's trying to go over blockers, which he is physical enough to do. I think that the issue is he's overrunning the set ever so slightly. I think when he's attacking the ball, his body's a little bit in front of the ball and he's reaching back for the ball just a tiny bit too much to really get on top of the ball and maybe hit the ball to the baseline. So that produces some of those unforced errors. But I think Flexen's got some work to do for sure, but I didn't disagree with the choice to start him. I also didn't disagree with the choice to start Gabi Garcia, but his offensive game definitely needs some work right now. He is really struggling to hit the ball into the court around big blockers. His best option by far is high flat or down the line wrist away, and both of those tend to be error prone. The first couple matches, he brought the ball down into the block a lot and got stuff blocked. Is also, I haven't seen him feel a lot of confidence in hitting the ball cross court. So he's got to take a look at some film and get comfortable with his arm angles and his offensive game. But then off the bench for him came Cooper Robinson for Flexen and Kyle Hobus for Garcia. And we've really got something in this Kyle Hobus kid, y'all. We've got something there. We really do. I thought he was super good all week. He's really smooth. Hobus, I think, did a terrific job of finding angles with his arm to hit the ball into the court. I thought his line, Langle, seam, deep cross court, sharp cross court, it was all there in terms of being able to see the block and hit the ball into the court. And I thought his service game was generally pretty good. His blocking game was good. He's good on the left side. So I really think we've got a player with a lot of potential there in Kyle Hobus. And then Cooper Robinson came in and almost saved the game for us, really. I mean, he went 8 for 15 with only one error, 47% efficiency off the bench, plus a block, pretty decent reception, and getting targeted in just the two sets that he played. I thought Quinn Isaacson was largely very good. I think this goes back to a point that Eric Shoji made in our preview that we did with him last week. One, that Kyle Hobus might be the surprise of the summer. He nailed that one. But the other was that the setters are the American setters who have played professional volleyball in Europe so far. There is a visible difference in their caliber of backcourt defense compared to the kids that are coming out the NCAA. Quinn Isaacson played terrific backcourt defense in the last two matches this week. Much, much better, and made a lot more of a difference in that area than Andrew Rowan did. I really liked watching Quinn play. He served the ball well. He had a lot of command, made great choices, really got the middle of the court involved more than what Rowan was doing. It seemed like Rowan was most comfortable setting Robinson the big ball, didn't connect well with the middles, didn't connect well with Ewert, but Isaacson was going to all four middle of the court options, which I think is very much the United States' identity. The middle position, I think, was pretty good. Matt Knigge was good. Maybe not great in the blocking game, but he was good and involved on offense at 9 for 13 with no errors, so that was nice. Kyle D'Agostino had a lot better of a game in reception than his first game. 73% positive passing is excellent, and that's just trying to do what Eric Shoji told us when we were talking about reception in the preview, and that's not get aced. All we need to do is the best thing that we can focus on doing in reception is not getting aced. Unfortunately, after point 20 in the sets that we lost is when we got aced. That was the difference. Slovenia was ready to make those plays. They put good serves in after point 20, and they fought off our good serves after point 20. We made a few too many service errors in the proverbial red zone and got aced a few too many times, and that's the difference. And another thing that I thought was an issue for us against Slovenia was our block discipline. And that goes in a couple different ways. First and foremost, this is a note to Cooper Robinson specifically. The kid's got to stop jumping on the middle. Way too many times this whole week do I see him either jumping on, like full commit jumping on the middle or full commit jumping on a front court setter. Way too many times did he leave his hitter, which is the opposing opposite, a wide open net. So he's got to be more disciplined in that area. But the other thing, and this is clearly part of Slovenia's game plan that I thought they did really well, was their off-speed game on offense just chewed our block up to pieces. Our blocking handwork was not good enough, not disciplined enough. We did not get over the net fast enough. We didn't seal. We were not prepared to deal with the junk from Slovenia. I mean, Tina Ernout, the veteran legend, is so good in those situations. When he sees a little bit of space between blockers or between the blocker and the net, he will throw that ball straight down the front of the block and score. Or he will take a super crazy trap ball and somehow get a finger on it off the block to recycle it back. He killed us with his off-speed game. Ziga Stern, I thought we bottled up for phases of that match, but the same deal. when Slovenia went to the off speed, we really had an issue with defending against that. And then I thought that Jan Kozimiernik, who is a world-class middle blocker, world-class middle attacker, absolutely ran circles around our middles. It was a complete difference in level. Matt Knigge was nowhere to be found trying to slow Kozimiernik down, and that's just a guy who is an elite world-class player who has been there before, just kind of given a hard lesson to a couple kids that haven't really been there before. And in the long term, that's okay. Slovenia is very good. I applaud Slovenia for the week that they had, and given their schedule and like the intention with which they're trying to get younger, because that is a thing that we've been questioning about that team. They've got this kind of golden era of 7 or 8 guys, but that have played a lot of volleyball the last decade. But beneath that, we were wondering if they were going to be able to develop, and it looks to me that they are. And one of those guys who kind of came off the bench in sort of a closer role for Slovenia was Nick Mujanovic, man. 14 points in very limited action, went 12 for 20 with no errors. Completely unstoppable. Every ball that they set him was automatic. And I don't know if we prepared to see Mujanovic, because he had just dropped 30 the night before on a really heavy workload. So I don't think we were surprised by Mujanovic starting on the bench. We saw a lot of Tonček Stern, and I thought we did a pretty good job against him. Stern went 9 for 25 with 7 errors, so we bottled him up pretty well. But it was clear that we were not ready to stop Nick Mujanovic. Our block was not in the right spot. He's just a completely different attacker, hits the ball way higher, has a lot more range. I think his cross-court game is excellent. I think Mujanovic is going to be a damn good player for a long time, but it's kind of a bummer to see him come in and chew us up the way he did. And then Nate Najdic is Slovenia's young setter. I think he's just like 19. I think he's going to be pretty good as well. So credit to Fabio Soli for Slovenia making those changes off the bench to help them win that match. But it is a bummer that I think that match was winnable for us. I wouldn't have picked us to beat Slovenia in just about any other situation. But since they had as quick of a turnaround as they did, I thought that match was winnable for us. And we just didn't quite make enough plays after point 20 was the big thing for me. And even the set that we won, which we made some changes, won that third set pretty convincingly. I thought the other 3 sets we had real chances to win, just couldn't quite get it over the finish line. And before I move on to the next game, the last thing I want to talk about here, and by no means, I want to get out in front of this, by no means is it the reason that we lost or the reason that the match went the way it did. But the officiating with the off-speed attacking was not good and not consistent. The throw call that we got called on late in, I think it was the second. No, I think we got called on a throw late in the first. Let me see if I can scroll back through the play-by-play on Volley Station to find this. We got called for a throw. I think it was late in the first, and then Slovenia, Ziga Stern completely dunked a ball that I thought stuck in the hands for way longer than the one we got called for very late in the second, which ended up going to overtime, that they did not get called for. And I have been on the record that I like being stricter on calling that jam throw sort of play. The two-handed thing, the push into the block, redirect and swipe thing, the power tip, like I am in favor of being more strict on that call. I like not calling the double contact, which is a completely different conversation, but I am against the modern thing of volleyball where you can just catch and throw and do all this sort of open-handed nonsense with the ball, especially in out-of-system situations and with a block in front of you. I'm against that, so I like that. I think across VNL as a whole, that seems to be a point of emphasis to call that a little bit tighter, but we really got the wrong end of the stick in the Slovenia match on those calls. We got called for one late in the first. Let's see, what was the score line? We got called, it would have been, okay, yeah, Jordan Ewert at 22-22. Jordan Ewert got called for a lift in the first set on a play that was deemed to be a throw that gave Slovenia the lead, and then they immediately served an ace on the next point, and we lost the set. So again, not the reason why we lost the set. We can't get ace on the next play, but that was not a very good call. I did not think that stuck in his hands for very long, and we lost the point. But that set a standard, right? That set a standard for a pretty strict lift call. Then very late in the second set, Stern chucks a ball, I thought, that stuck in his hands for much longer than the one that Ewert got called for that did not get called. So I didn't think that was called very consistently. And I'm in favor of being more strict on that call. I don't think that was handled particularly well in our game. There was also that weird reaching over the net call that we got called for that was, I think, pretty clearly missed. I think that was in the Cuba game, and that didn't end up affecting us. But I'm against the dunk play. I like that they're being more strict on that, but I think that we kind of got screwed late on a couple calls there. Again, not the reason why we lost to Slovenia. However, a little more than 24 hours later, we had an awesome opportunity the next day against a completely different opponent. Cuba could not be more different of an opponent than Slovenia, especially the version of Slovenia that we saw. They like the mostly veteran, really skilled, crafty Slovenia. We saw a beaten down, worn out Cuba who is just so classic Cuba. They are phenomenally physical. They are incredibly talented. They are streaky in both a good way and a bad way, where they can absolutely pop off with their physicality, particularly from the baseline. They can stuff block 4 balls in a row. They can rip balls out of system that very few teams in the world can keep up with. But the lack of consistency sometimes for Cuba is pretty painful to watch. They are a total roller coaster. It is impossible to predict which version of Cuba you're going to get on a given day. You saw good Cuba against Brazil earlier in the week when they went up 2-0 and dealt with Brazil fighting back, and Cuba ended up beating them in 5 in Rio. It's actually a place where Cuba has actually traditionally had quite a bit of success. So I wasn't sure which version of Cuba we were going to get. I had a feeling that they might run out of gas late in the week, and that sort of turned out to be the case. It was a completely different matchup in terms of block defense against their attackers. They are a totally different team. They run a much higher, slower offense. They are so much more physical. They will never show you any off speed. They will just torch the ball as hard as they can. Same thing from the baseline. And you just got to kind of weather the storm. And the scouting report against Cuba is if you can play clean enough, keep the ball in play enough, and let Cuba perhaps make some unforced errors, then you can beat that team. And I think that's exactly what we did. And I loved the effort that we showed yesterday and the adaptation to that style of game. First of all, I feel so bad for Pat Gassman because he came off the bench against Iran, was a total hero. He obviously served the ace that won us the match in overtime there in the 5th. He got the start in this game against Cuba yesterday, and then he turned his ankle like 8 points into the match. So that was a huge bummer. But then pretty huge credit to Matt Knigge, who was not expected to see any court time at all. And I'm sure like in his preparation, you always stay ready, but in a tournament like this, like if you don't think you're going to play a whole lot, you're just the way you prepare for it mentally is just totally different. But he got called upon suddenly and came in, I thought played really well. Our other kind of MVP from yesterday against Cuba was Jeff Jendrick, man. Jeff Jendrick was so good yesterday. 10 for 14 on offense, 2 stuff blocks. I actually think he might have had a couple more blocks than that, or at least more block impact. And he showed like the veteran caliber middle blocker that we were hoping to see from him earlier in the week. He was not good at all against Ukraine. Jendrick was so good yesterday, and a couple serving runs that he had where he got back on left back in defense and dug a bunch of balls. He was one of our better backcourt defenders. Like we don't have any dig stats on Volley Station, so I can't see the number, but Jeff Jendrick legitimately changed that game in backcourt defense. So that was really cool to see. The outside pairing we went with was Cooper Robinson and Ethan Champlin. Finally, Ethan Champlin got some proper run. I was kind of waiting to see him fully get a full game to start and be the guy in 6 rotations. And I thought, even though the numbers aren't stellar, 9 for 27, 5 errors, a block, decent reception, 1 ace, 11 points total, I thought he was fantastic. I really thought Ethan Champlin was fantastic because he played that L2 role to perfection. He was there to support. He was there to take up space in reception. He was there to recycle in out-of-system situations and make good decisions. And I thought he did a brilliant brilliant job. And I think he earned himself a lot more court time. Paul, I agree in the chat. Numbers don't really explain Champlin's game or his impact, but the numbers do match up pretty well for Cooper Robinson, man. This kid's going to be so good. The blocking, 4 stuff blocks was incredible. He had that one-on-one block against Masso straight down that was an all-time highlight. I think that was right after we had like pancaked the ball and barely kept the ball off the floor and sent it back over, and then Cooper buried that ball on the block straight through the floorboards. That was absolutely electrifying. He went 12 for 30 on offense, carried a pretty big out-of-system load, so blocked 7 times, but against Cuba, that's kind of to be expected. That's what they do. He particularly got bottled up when he was in rotation 1 on the right side. But again, not the end of the world. That's just kind of the matchup. He had 2 aces. I thought he was terrific out of the back row, off of both Rowan and Isaacson. Quinn came in to start the 4th set after Rowan started the rest of the match. I thought Kyle Hobus was pretty good. I was actually kind of surprised that he got pulled off the court to start the 4th. I assume that was for Gabi Garcia's serving, which was by far the thing that he did the best all week. Garcia was from the baseline. I think he is the best American server that suited up this week. Just has the best arm. He looks like he put a ball in at 120 kilometers an hour. He had 1 ace, 0 errors on 6 attempts. So that's a pretty nice game from Gabi. He was better on offense as well today. But I just really liked the way that we were able to play an opponent of a completely different style and do the correct things in order to win that match. I thought our backcourt defense was really good. Our blocking game was largely pretty good. We were in the right spots a lot more often. 11 stuff blocks is a pretty nice number in 4 sets, but just visually to me, the block defense system looked significantly better, and I think Jeff Jendrick deserves a lot of credit for that. I think he was super good. I think Mason Briggs was super good. What I really liked, and I think people in the chat were talking about this earlier. At one point in the timeout, you could pretty clearly hear the guys, and I think it was Jendrick and Briggs in particular, and maybe like Robinson, one of the left side blockers. They were talking about the matchup of Jose Masso, who I thought we did a really good job putting pressure on. Masso is he's basically a middle blocker turned opposite. He's played a little bit of both positions. He keeps flip-flopping. He's going to be the opposite for the most part for Cuba this summer. I thought we did a really good job putting pressure on him, and I liked hearing the conversations about where to line up block and defense against him to do the best job of shutting him down, because if Masso is going to go over the top of our left side blocker, that ball is probably going to be out of bounds. That's what our guys were talking about. So Mason Briggs, I thought, did a really good job of telling the left side blocker to leave the line available for Briggs to dig and to press over the net and not go that high, because we didn't present him a target with our fingertips to hit off of. So either he was going to hit the ball high, hit it out of bounds, bring it down the line and hopefully get dug by Briggs, or we could force him to go challenge the middle blocker into the cross court. I thought that job that we did on Masso was really good. And that people were talking about the coaching and the timeout. So what I like is that in Karch, Luca, and Javier, the coaching staff, aren't doing a whole lot of tactical changing in timeouts, but when there is something that needs to be done, I like that they're empowering the players to figure it out on their own. I'm really a fan of that. They're, instead of like telling the players what to do, they're asking the players what they think they should do about a matchup and letting the players kind of learn and develop those mental solutions on their own. I think in the long term, that's a really super good thing. And that's kind of what we've seen from Karch Kurai always, which I really absolutely love. And then the other thing about, and it's going to come into play at the end of every VNL week for both the men and the women, the deeper teams are going to have more success late in the weeks, and the teams that can dig deep emotionally are going to have more success late in the weeks. 4 matches in 5 days is a lot. In my opinion, it's too much. I don't think it's good for the players. I don't think it's great for the caliber of volleyball. But I think that we showed today, and this is not a super hard thing to do, let's be honest, that even this version of a young American team is a mentally stronger team than Cuba is. Not hard to be a mentally stronger team than Cuba is, but we did that. We had a matchup. We identified what needed to be done with a really young group, and we adapted. We didn't get too down emotionally when Cuba would string points together, which again, they will. They'll block 3 or 4 balls in a row. They'll rip a bunch of serves in a row. They're a very scary serving team, but I thought that we hung in there both gameplay-wise and emotionally extremely well. And the way that the way that your team can feel when you leave Brazil, get on a plane, come back to Anaheim, get back in the gym training, the way those guys are going to feel rejoining the rest of the USA group after winning their last match. And I sure hope that they feel like this week was a success, because it absolutely was. 2-2 this week is absolutely a success with a group that young. I hope that they feel that incredibly positive energy and momentum that only winning can create. And they deserve that, because this was a difficult thing that all of these players were thrown into this week. They didn't have a lot of time to prepare. They certainly don't have a lot of time to adjust. But I thought that given all the context that we've talked about leading up to and during the tournament already, I thought this week for the United States men was a massive success. I'm really encouraged by some of the individual development that we saw, some of the chemistry that we saw develop, some of the team attention to detail things. Like, remember, think back to Wednesday, just like how gross and sloppy and bad the volleyball looked against Ukraine. And it's not even the result that we lost that match, just how we looked, like how poorly we played, and how much more like ready we felt to play at the international level only 5 days later. That's kind of the most encouraging part for me, that we looked and felt so much more comfortable by the end of the week, 4 matches in such a short amount of time. I think there's a huge amount to be optimistic about and encouraged about with this USA group. And now I assume they're already back in Anaheim. It's Monday, June 16th. They are next in action next Wednesday night, the 25th, against China in Chicago. So home crowd. They got two beatable opponents in China and Canada. Canada had a good week up in Quebec City. Everett and I will certainly Everett will get way more into that tomorrow on the 9x9. But then we have Poland and Italy. And Italy just announced today that they're bringing basically their entire Olympic team to Chicago. So those are going to be 2 really tough games. China, I think at this point is a must win. And even though China picked up 2 wins this week playing at home, they beat 2 bad opponents. And I don't think that like any type of success for China is super sustainable. I think their floor is a little higher with Vital Heinen, but I really like our chances to beat Canada, and I think that should be a game that we really prioritize the result. We should prioritize winning that game. And then just emotionally, I really want to beat Canada on that Thursday, man. I really want to beat Canada on that Thursday. Canada's feeling themselves. They just 3-donged Bulgaria yesterday. Brody Hofer had the match of his life. They had an incredible crowd up there in QC. I think Canada's flying high, and I want them to come into our home building, and I want them to leave crushed. I want us to put our best foot forward against Canada. I think our teams are in very similar places. I think the outside hitter position is going to be the matchup that wins it for whichever team plays better in that spot. I think that we have a chance to really make a statement if we can beat that Canadian team in Chicago next week, Thursday. And Everett and I will certainly be firing back and forth about it. We've already got the traditional wager. We'll have more little sort of promotion to help sell that game to you all next Thursday night. But that is one I've definitely got my eyes on. Then a game off. Then I just kind of want to see how we hang against Poland. I wonder who they're going to bring. Poland is the only team that went 4-0 in week 1. They're like C team, went over to China and beat 3 terrible opponents. Then they beat Japan's kind of young crew, and they had a great week. So maybe Poland doesn't necessarily bring out the big guns for Chicago, but I kind of think that they will anyway, because every game they play is going to be sold out with Polish fans here in my city that has so many Polish people. And then assuming Italy plays the guys, that's going to be a very difficult game to win on Sunday to cap off the week. But if we go 2-2 again at home, I would have a very hard time complaining about those results. So a lot to feel good about, y'all. A lot to feel good about. I applaud a lot of the fan base on the men's side for it seems to me, just from the activity that I've seen online this week, we've been more supportive, we've been more patient, we've been more understanding of the context and the situation that these teams are in, or that this team is in, this American team in the first year of the cycle, being so young, having so much flexibility to get players in and not worry about the results. I ask you now to keep that support going for the women. The women this week are going to Belgrade, Serbia, and they might be in for a rough one. The women are going to have a rough week. They have Serbia, who is bringing Tijana Bošković back. They have Poland, who is good. They have the Netherlands, who are decently good, and they have France, who has all their players back after a pretty brutal week one. So the women, who only really brought back Dana Retke, Lexi Rodriguez, and who else? One of the middles, Breon Butler, maybe. Otherwise, it's basically so all the wings and the setters are the same as week one, and I'm a little worried about the women's results, but I encourage everybody to keep going with the thinking that we have had, that we've established here on this channel. Remember, you can do both. You can identify and call out bad volleyball and areas of improvement, while also being patient and understanding and supportive of a young team who has a long runway with which to learn and develop in this Volleyball Nations League. So it's a really good time to be a USA fan for the men. I think we had an awesome week. The women are going to have a difficult week coming up. Make sure you watch all the games and support them as best we can, and just be patient. Be patient with Eric Sullivan's group. I'm sure they've had a good week of training. They've got a lot to learn. They've got a lot of new, still extremely young players out there. We'll see how they can hang. And make sure you, subscribe here to Volleyball Source if you're not already. Tune in to our show, the 9x9, tomorrow, where we're going to recap the entire men's week one of VNL and set the stage for women's week two. And then Everett arrives in Chicago 1 week from today. 1 week from today, I get to host Everett DeLorme in my home city. So we're going to have ourselves a week, and there will be a ton of activity on this YouTube channel. So make sure you're subscribed. I don't want to do like the cringy YouTuber thing, but honestly, like during VNL, the best way to like make sure you catch everything that we're doing is to like turn your alerts on, like with that bell icon that will tell you when we go live for stuff. Like especially when we're at events in person, it's like our schedule is very unpredictable. We kind of like we set up a stream and go live like 5 minutes in advance. So you definitely want to follow along with us here for the remainder of this tournament. And we have a Discord community that's popping off. It's really active. There's a link in the description for that as well if you want to join our USA channel. I like to give them a hard time for being too reactive, but they are doing a pretty good job in general of being patient and supportive, but also identifying some bad volleyball when there is some, but it's a lot better of a place for American fans than like Twitter or Instagram comments from what I've seen. Yes, Ukraine was good this week. I agree. We're going to talk a lot more about them on the 9x9 tomorrow. But a lot to feel good about if you're a USA fan. Keep supporting both of our teams. Tune into the 9x9 tomorrow here on Volleyball Source, and we'll see you then. Go USA.